Welcome to the midweek edition of Legal AF with your regular co-anchors on Wednesdays, Michael Popok and Karen Friedman-Ignifilo. Let's start where everybody wants us to start, Karen. Let's talk about the debate. I'm struggling with that word because I'm not sure what word to really assign to that. Certainly Kamala Harris overwhelmingly won with her oratory skills, her elegance, her efficient presentation of facts, her debating skills, her prosecutorial skills on display against just an unhinged, demented madman who didn't come prepared to debate. I think he still thought that Joe Biden was going to show up and he was just going to debate Joe Biden. 40% of Americans didn't know enough about Kamala Harris to make their decisions, so they told pollsters. They certainly know enough now. And she's checked all the boxes, and we'll talk more about it, rendering her obviously qualified, as we always thought she would be, to be commander-in-chief and to hold the highest office in the land. 90% of those same people polled said they knew more than enough about Donald Trump, and he certainly didn't disappoint in that regard. We're going to talk about, in the middle of the whole thing, or right at the end of it, during our live Midas Touch coverage, post-debate coverage, Taylor Swift got off the sidelines and decided she'd had enough of Donald Trump tormenting her and claiming through AI that she endorsed him, and decided in a full-throated endorsement, signed a childless cat lady, that she was going to endorse Kamala Harris. We're going to talk about the Swift effect on the electorate, the millennials who vote, the parents of millennials, grandparents of millennials, and those that support millennials, and everybody else that takes their direction from Taylor Swift. Oprah Winfrey has been shown through prior history to have helped Obama by plus 3 million votes when she, as an independent, endorsed Obama, those many years ago. The question is, I assume Taylor Swift will have an even greater impact. We'll talk about it, and we'll talk about the impact of it in the battleground states. I think if you're comparing the two endorsements that each candidate got in the last month, RFK for Donald Trump and Taylor Swift for Kamala Harris, I think it's sort of no contest. And we'll talk also about J.D. Vance and this sick fascination that the MAGA party has with cats, whether they are making fun of women who own them when they're not taking away their reproductive rights, or saying that hardworking Haitian and Haitian Americans who come to this country for a better life are out because of Democratic policy killing your pets and cats and dogs. What is it with cats? I thought they just had a thing about size, but apparently, and doubling and tripling down on it, on what started as a meme, I assume, to be the counterweight to J.D. Vance being accused of fornicating on with his couch. I almost said on his couch. That would have been fine. Fornicating his couch. And they didn't like that, so they decided to make up some fake meme. And what all they did was hurt, in a racist way, it's always a black community that gets the backhand of Donald Trump and MAGA. You know, he's not talking about Swedish people in Ohio that are eating cats. It's always somebody that's black and brown that he can therefore go after and attack. Enough is enough. Then we're going to talk about and update what happened in New York with Judge Merchan. And I particularly want to ask Karen Friedman-Ignifilo, my close friend and co-anchor, what her opinion is about the fact that when Judge Merchan decided to extend the time to sentence till 2 days before Thanksgiving, Donald Trump, for the 34 felony count conviction, he cited as one of the reasons, well, the Manhattan DA is not taking a position on this. So hearing no opposition, I am going to move it. I want to get your impression as to why the Manhattan DA did that, and then what was the judge signaling, if anything, about that? Would he have, in other words, would he have sentenced had the Manhattan DA taken a stronger position on that? And if not, I want to hear why not. And then we've got on the parallel side, the federal courts getting involved because Donald Trump's trying to get him involved as he tries to jump the tracks from state to federal court and get a federal appellate courts involved as well. Even though he's gotten what he wanted, did he really get what he wanted? Because the immunity decision is also not going to be made by Judge Merchan until after the election, which means there's no path to an appeal for Donald Trump. So he's got this shadow or shade over him on the immunity decision and sentencing as people go to the polls. We'll talk about all of that. And then we haven't heard about Georgia and Fani Willis, except on the debate stage when Donald Trump kept putting her name in his mouth over and over again. Again, part of their racist rhetoric to try to attack people of color while he debated a successful person of color. We'll talk about new developments for Fani Willis as she tries to fight off the state Senate Republicans who are trying to drag her in the middle of her prosecution. Case is not over. An investigation, drag her before them to investigate her. And we'll talk about what she's doing in response to that. And of course, we'll get some great guidance from Karen Friedman-Agnifilo, a former prosecutor. So, and I also have, let's bring Karen on. We'll send pictures, I promise, but after the show tonight, Mistrial and Legal AF are having dinner together. I am literally joining the three accomplished former prosecutors, hosts of Mistrial for dinner. And Karen's there in both capacities. She'll be wearing two hats. And we'll send pictures, we promised, for that crossover moment. Karen, what do you think about all that?
Maybe you'll come on our show one time and we can have a little crossover mashup. Yeah,
I'd love that. On that note, just as a little preview, I want to do that. And Dave Arenberg, the Florida law guy, ding. Sorry.
He was on Mistrial.
Well, he's going to come on our show next Wednesday.
Yeah, we had him on Mistrial.
Yeah, I caught that one. So I told him that, I do a crossover with him. I've done a couple of hot takes over on true crime, and I think he'll be fun for you and I to have.
He and Donnie went to law school together. Like they were.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy small world we live in.
The day that he was there to visit her, and you guys posted that photo, Michael Cohen was there and popped in on a meeting that I was having with another client. Just a strange, incestuous, flat earth world that we live in.
It really, really is. Popak, we have to start today, though, just really recognizing that it's 9/11. And it is the solemn 23rd anniversary of, that tragedy. And for me, I have to talk about it and recognize it because I happen to live across the street from the former World Trade Center and was there that day. And it was a pretty traumatic experience, to say the least. But every year, the entire downtown area I still live there. So the entire downtown area shuts down. And just the idea that literally across the street this morning was Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Kamala Harris, Mike Bloomberg. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And that they were all standing together right across the street. And, it was such a strange feeling because I was so elated last night after the debate and just thought, oh my God, this is unbelievable. And just that 1-2 punch, of Kamala hitting it out of the park and then Taylor Swift dropping that amazing news literally right after. But then to wake up to this always just puts things in perspective, and it'll never be any easier. I watch the ceremonies and I can hear the bell ringing and the things that they do, it's literally across the street. So anyway, I just wanted to acknowledge what today is.
Yeah, 1,000%. So glad that you did that. As people know, I worked at Cantor Fitzgerald. I wasn't there on 9/11. I came in years later, but Cantor Fitzgerald lost 658 employees when the plane went through their trading floor and operating floor. My former boss lost his brother. My boss, who was the general counsel of the company, just missed being incinerated as he came out of an elevator. I've been to private 9/11 ceremonies for the Cantor Fitzgerald families, and it was an honor for me at the time to work there for that organization, who also has a charity day where they raise money on or about the 9/11 trading day, and usually they are able, all the profits from the firm, which went from, having lost 658 people, they were left with 115 or 120 people worldwide on 9/12. They now have about 14,000 people in all of their company. And they, on that trading day, charity day, they call it, they bring in celebrities, they trade at their desks worldwide, and all of the commission and profit that goes from those trades goes to charity. Usually it raises between 10 and $15 million. I always had the honor to be a part of that. So listen, as you live there, and I work for an organization that even years later, there was not a day that went by that we were not reminded about 9/11. We had one of our lawyers who survived, horribly burned, who survived, that sat right outside my office, one of our tax lawyers who just recently retired. So yeah, I wasn't living in New York at the time. People, when I tell them I worked at Cantor, they think, were you there then? And the reality is that almost the entirety of the legal and compliance department was murdered that day.
Yeah, no, it was. It was an unbelievable experience, to have the buildings come down and the dust cloud. When we heard the building coming down, we didn't leave the apartment because I had two little identical twin 4-year-olds at the time. And we had gathered all the people in our building, and we were all in the hallways and trying to figure out what to do. But you look out the window and you literally see people jumping, and you see stuff happening, and it was beyond horrific. And we were scared to go out, frankly. And then when the buildings came down, in your mind, you're thinking it's going to come down and it's going to crush you and crush your building. Like, we didn't know it was going to come straight down. And so it was the experience was something that one day maybe I'll do a Patreon or something with you, and we can tell the story. But it was, talking to my girls about it this morning was, just remembering, and the things that they remember, when we walked out and we were carrying the kids, some friends from the Manhattan DA's office actually came down with some police officers and some masks to help us get out, because we were in that dust cloud and we couldn't breathe. Mm-hmm. And the girls, we had them put their heads down on us. And one of them said to my husband, her dad said, Dad, what's going to happen? He was like, they're going to bring a giant vacuum cleaner and clean all this up. And, you had to kind of explain it, to someone who's 4 years old and try to keep it, so it wasn't so awful. Anyway, it's even hard to talk about, but,
no. Yeah.
But it was,
tonight I was going to give you a big hug anyway, but now you're definitely getting a big hug with me. I could use one too. Yeah, and I think it just demonstrates. I read a statistic yesterday that there are, high school students in Florida, and not just in Florida, who don't know what happened on 9/11, despite the fact that it's taught in schools. For those that live in and around New York and lost people in the tower, like you and I both did, we think about it's not just a day that ends up on the calendar. We think about it. It's just part of the fiber of our being New Yorkers and all of that. And so, yeah, we would be remiss, and I'm glad you kicked it off with that. And the solemnity of today, where even politics was set aside for about 30 minutes. Yes, Donald Trump tried to have Mike Bloomberg broker a handshake, and Kamala Harris, as she showed, and we'll transition to the debate performance now, as she showed in the debate, owns Donald Trump, is renting space in his brain. He's a real estate guy. She's renting space for free in his brain. And it started with the handshake that she crossed the stage to have him meet her in the middle, literally, and shake his hand at the start of the debate. She did it again at 9/11 today, because she is not scared of Donald Trump. She is in charge. She has, as they say, tall person energy, and she projects it. And if anybody had any question in their mind going into the debate about whether Kamala Harris was up to the task of being the leader of the free world, occupying the Oval Office, getting the 3 a.m. phone call, or being the commander-in-chief, I think all doubts were erased with that performance, which frankly surpassed even my wildest hopes for how she would perform. She even did better than that. So let's dive into the debate. And I think it's an interesting place for you and I to be analyzing, because we debate for a living. We're advocates for a living. We have had people's liberty, you as a prosecutor, now as a defense lawyer, me primarily as a defense lawyer, in our hands in criminal cases and in and people's money and important business matters in our civil cases. And we advocate at a podium, a lectern, a hearing room, a conference room, a courtroom, whatever you're going to have it, regularly. So we can give our perspective as professional debaters about how Prosecutor-in-Chief Kamala Harris did last night from that perspective. And I think that's a unique perspective on the dial. I'll just, why don't you kick off about your observations about the debate, and then I'll fill in from there, and then we can both talk about the Taylor Swift impact on voting. And I guess the open question is, for me, or the question I have is, if historians and election experts and scientists calculated that the Oprah effect was plus 3 million, what will they find that the Taylor Swift impact is going to be?
It's interesting. What I loved about Taylor Swift and what she did timing wise is, it was clear that that was deliberate, right? The way she wrote it. It wasn't just like a one line, I support Kamala Harris. It was a really well thought out, fairly lengthy post with a particular picture that, was to kind of stick it to J.D. Vance and his childless cat lady. I mean, she even signed it childless cat lady. And so you could tell she was thinking about, she what I love about her, first of all, I love her. I'm a Swiftie. What can I say? She's just amazing. But she didn't throw her support to the Democrats. She makes them earn it, she withheld until she thought somebody earned it. And when Kamala Harris knocked it out of the park, and there is no doubt she knocked it out of the park, she was like, click, hit send, or how, I think it was Instagram, how she posted it. I love that about her. It made it feel so real, and it made it feel so poignant. And it was just this authentic, not knee-jerk endorsement of Kamala Harris. She didn't know anything about her, right? She didn't know enough about her. This was a shorter campaign cycle. But, the debate itself was just, before I leave Taylor Swift, I loved what Jon Stewart on The Daily Show said, which is, one of the questions about, that came tonight was how are undecided voters going to, be impacted by tonight's debate? And he's like, well, at least one undecided voter decided. And then he shows Taylor Swift, which I thought was really funny. But, the debate itself, a lot of people were nervous. They were nervous about how this is going to go and how she's going to do. And, she seemed a little nervous, her voice crackling in the beginning. And, I noticed that Donald Trump kind of always the theater, always the man of the show is trying to make himself look less weird. His skin color has gotten slightly less orange. She's like brown, but you can still see the white on the edges, but that's part of his thing. Same thing with his hair. It's less yellow. It's got less of that weird point. It's more brownish, grayish. And, you can see it right there. Like he still looks weird, but you can just see that he's trying to tone down some of his really weirdness. And so that was the first thing I noticed. And then, coming out it was funny. I was following on Twitter a lot of this, and and Donald Trump, characteristically kept interrupting and speaking and saying things out of turn. And there were a lot of people online saying, why aren't they muting his mic? I thought they were supposed to mute his mic. And I have to say, I loved that they didn't mute his mic, because Kamala didn't need that. She's like, go for it. I can say what you want to say. Dig your own grave, buddy. I don't need your mic muted. And I don't want it to, I don't want anyone to be accusing of like, oh, they shut him down. No, they didn't shut him down. They let him say whatever he wanted to say. And then they turned around and she still, literally wiped the floor with him. And she did it in a way that, she walked this fine line of, women prosecutors, have to be very careful on how they present themselves, because, I've tried many, many cases. I'm obviously a woman. I was a prosecutor, and jurors always want to talk to you afterwards, especially if there's a conviction. They always ask to talk to you. And, they always comment on your appearance, whether it's your clothes, whether it's one trial I lost weight because, I was terrified and it was stressful and I couldn't eat, lost weight, or they ask you questions about, whatever. It's like the kind of questions you don't ask men, they don't ask you that kind of stuff. They don't comment on what you were wearing or what you look like, or, similar with a lot of the comments I get on the show. I get a lot of comments, from people who are talking about, various things that are physical appearance in nature. And so women, anyone who's been a woman knows that that's the case. And especially as a prosecutor, the other thing you have to be worried about is kind of, you don't want to be too harsh. You'll be called shrill. You'll be called, women get judged by a different standard. And I think I could just tell that she, I was worried that she could potentially come across like that, even though that is not her personality and that's not who she typically is, but I think that was one of the reasons Hillary, turned a lot of women and men and people off, and there's a little bit of a way about her that sometimes I think can be misinterpreted. And I think it's an unfair characterization of a lot of women, but, women of a certain age, and I'm the same age as Kamala, we get judged that way. And so just from that perspective, I think I was really impressed. But then, of course, substantively, she was substantively and on policy. She fact checked him. She had answers for everything, and they were all extremely substantive. And there's a lot of criticism that ABC was fact checking Trump, but not fact checking her, and it wasn't fair. That's on the right, on the MAGA side. Well, they didn't have to fact check her because she didn't lie. And she was telling the truth, and she, didn't need to be corrected so many times like he did. And so, she just let him be the freak show weirdo that he is, talking about, as you pointed out, Haitians, who are allegedly eating people's pets, which was so ridiculous. I was watching a show this morning on it, and there was, I can't remember what his name was, but some MAGA right-wing person trying to justify that it came from like really trying to contort the facts that this somehow, that this came because he was somebody said that somebody was killed a duck and ate it or something. I mean, I think that's actually called duck hunting, but only a Black person who goes duck hunting and kills a duck is somehow now killing people's pets, and you turn that into cats and dogs. First of all, it's ridiculous. And second of all, it's just so clearly just people contorting the facts, trying to make Donald Trump less of a liar and less of a weird freak show and extreme, to use Kamala Harris's word, but she also had, I just thought what she had to say about every topic just knocked it out of the park. So I loved it. I felt so good afterward and during it. And it was invigorating and inspiring. And I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. I my take on it was similar. I had my wife next to me during it. We were kind of going back and forth a bit. For me, it was a kind of a crazed, unhinged, ill-prepared Donald Trump who I really had not, except when I prepare for hot takes in the show, I don't watch long stretches of like his rallies. I think Ben does more of that to do some of his work. I watch, the things that are important. I go right to the heart of it when I'm doing hot takes. So I had actually underestimated how decrepit is the word, and demented Donald Trump had become since I last was focused on his full speech and debate, forget Biden, back comparing it to 2020. It really is not almost shocking at how he now at almost 80 and surrounded by sycophants and in an echo chamber of mean memes and MAGA just can't put a coherent thought together without just lying on a regular basis, where even lying so poorly that even the American people can fact check him or just find it so incredulous that he would even say these things. I joked among a text chain among us Midas Touch people last night. I said, well, if you had in the Donald Trump Deadpool pool that at the 30-minute mark, he would claim that Democratic policy is responsible for people losing their cats and dogs to meals, you won. Because that showed you how exhausted intellectually Donald Trump has become, how hollowed out he is morally and from a value standpoint, from a policy standpoint, that 30 minutes into a debate, he's claiming that cats and dogs are being stolen and eaten by hate. It always has to be black immigrants. Black immigrants, black people who are trying to make a living in this country and are in Ohio for some reason. And I have a lot of friends in the Haitian community, the Haitian legal and business community in Miami. I call them friends. I've known them for years. I've gone regularly to the Haitian Bar Association dinner, and they are livid at him just casually using them as an example, a downtrodden group of people that are one of the poorest, if not the poorest in the Caribbean, and have been just abused by their own government and by warlords and everything else, and let down by the American government and immigration policy, and now being attacked for eating your cat. And what is it with the crazy cat things? It's like Donald Trump can't stop talking about crowd size and the size of things, and J.D. Vance can't keep the word cat out of his mouth. Now, I always thought in reading through some of J.D. Vance's memes and comments that he knew that it was a bullshit story, but this was payback for the F in the couch that was also false, by the way, that we admitted to. I mean, we didn't lead it. It was just, we debunked it pretty quickly. It was something that people believed because they took one look at the guy and they were like, yeah, that could have happened. But this was payback for that. And I know that's where almost like tongue-in-cheek J.D. Vance is, because at one point in one of his social media posts, he actually said, well, listen, I don't know if it's true or not, but keep the memes coming, which is what happened to him. So this was payback for that. This was also a way to distract from J.D. Vance's stupid 2 feet in mouth, where he said that childless cat ladies, don't have the right to vote and don't have the right to set policy in this country because they've never had children. And so it's always this this tie-in on the cats. And now Donald Trump, with all these stupid memes that the Republicans are putting out, thinking this is going to help them with independent voters, of Donald Trump cuddling cats and dogs, and he's going to be like he's Noah on Noah's Ark. He's going to be saving all the animals. Is this going to really, do the Republicans really think this is going to move the needle on election time? The answer to that is no. And I'll give you some data points for that. In the history of presidential debates, exactly 0 presidential candidates have gone into the spin room after a debate themselves. It's a cardinal rule that you don't do that. You use your advocates to do that. You don't go in and talk to the press in the quote. It's called the spin room for a reason, because everybody on both sides of the transaction know who the spinner is and who the spinnee is. The spinnee is the media. The spinner is the advocate, the proxy on behalf of the candidate. And it's just a dirty little process there. And sometimes a good quote comes out and the media reports on it, whatever. Donald Trump heads into the spin room. He so shocked his own advocates that they stopped talking. The weather changed, the oxygen got sucked out of the room, and they stopped talking because everybody went to Donald Trump. Now that shows me that he knows he lost. Now, sure, he's doing this, well, like she wants the second debate because like a boxer who knows they lost, they want the rematch. There is no one on planet Earth that is carbon-based and sucks oxygen with eyes or ears or an ability to sense something that believes that Donald Trump won that debate. Even 30% of MAGA Republicans think he lost, which is an inordinate amount given where they are in terms of support for Donald Trump. And of course, everybody else thought what we all thought, that not only that she won, but that she won not by a little, not by a decision, but like you said, by a knockout. First 10 minutes, just to do a little debate performance critique, first 10 minutes, she was nervous. And I thought, the first question, she sort of muffed it a little bit with didn't really answer David Muir's question. And then I thought it was a little bit clunky how she segued over to her policy position. But she had a number of things she needed to accomplish during 2 hours. She needed to introduce herself further to 30 or 40% of the American people that have said in polling, we need to know more about Kamala Harris. So there's a biographical aspect of the debate. And she, as she did with her first speeches that she did, and her nomination acceptance speech, she introduced herself to that large. That's a large number, 30%, when you've been in the public eye as long as she has, and you've been vice president. Although that's sort of an anonymous position. I know everyone's like, "What'd you ever do as vice president?" What did anybody ever do as vice president? I mean, sometimes they get to be co-president like she does, but the buck stops with the person that's in the Oval Office, and the other person is the backup. It's like, what did the backup quarterback ever do for Tom Brady except be around in case Tom Brady went down for a series? I mean, and then they stand up and shine, hopefully, at the right moment. And that's Kamala Harris. So she did that. Then she had to find ways to trigger Donald Trump. She had her 3 or 4 trigger points, which she did artfully, totally non sequitur, given the question that was asked. Like, rally size had nothing to do. I don't remember if that was the abortion question or the immigration question, but she almost had. I was wondering if she was wearing an Apple Watch that had a silent alarm, because it was like, time to do. Oh, here we go. I'm going to trigger him now, and she had fun with it. And she figured out after the 10-minute mark, when she hit her stride on reproductive rights for women, which of course she is the best person on that stage to talk about that issue. That from there to the end, she not only ate his lunch, she not only ate him for lunch, she ate his lunch. And I thought it started, and I had joked in a chain with our group, and nobody took me up on my bet. So I don't have to. I would have won the bet anyway. I said she is going to step onto that stage so confidently that she's going to cross that stage, get into his space, get into his grill, and shake his hand, or make him meet her and shake his hand. And that's going to set the tone for the debate, and he's never going to recover. And that's what happened. She walked out there. She strided on that stage confidently, showing amazing body language, and then stuck her hand out and then said her name. We talk a lot about say their name, say her name. She said her name, Kamala Harris. Because in other words, you don't seem to know my name, so I'm going to tell you my name, as opposed to good to see you, thank you. That would have been like 2 white guys on the stage, like, yeah, okay, thank you, good luck. No, Kamala Harris. That was her calling card. That was her announcement. He never recovered. She wormed her way into his brain at that moment, and he never got back off his back foot moving forward. All he became was this gibbering fool. There's no other way to put it, where Kamala Harris will put up a picture in a minute of her various facial expressions that she used effectively in rebuttal. New York Times did a great piece on that. One of them is, you are a madman. You are not well. She did more with her facial expressions than she needed to do sometimes with oration. That's how effective she was. Because you and I know as advocates that the jury's always looking at you, that you can, I've raised eyebrows and had the jury pick up on it when something happened. That was just as effective as if I had made an objection. And she knows that as well. And the camera loved her last night as well. When he started talking about, there was like 3 major points for him. Chinese tariffs, that was the solution for everything. And it didn't matter the topic. Topic could have been reproductive rights for women, Chinese tariffs. I assure you, the most of the electorate is not kept up at night about the Chinese trade war. Yet that was in the front lobe of Donald Trump the entire night. That was 1. 2, people being let out of mental patients being let out of mental asylums, right? We used to call them, what do we used to call them? We used to call them insane asylums. People being let out of insane asylums and prisons by Democratic policy to take black and brown jobs. That was another major talking point, right? And then interspersed with all that, then he gets to reproductive rights, which he should have delicately kind of talked about. Well, I don't support a federal ban, and I'm for IVF, which he called IEF. No. He tripled down on it. He said and then he lied to the American people, looking them straight in the eye. He said, every person on both sides of the aisle, Democrat, Republican, all agree with me that we should rip away a woman's right to choose enshrined in the Constitution and turn it over to the states. I mean, the fact that he could even put that sentence together and deliver it with Kamala Harris standing next to him, you could just hear in America the collective groan of Republicans who all uniformly have said he did terribly, and of women and people who support women voters who may not have made up their mind yet. That was one of the cringiest moments, was him trying to defend himself on reproductive rights and saying, well, just turn it over to the states. I said on a hot take recently, why don't we just turn involuntary servitude and indentured slavery back over to the states? And let's see what happens. There's just some things you don't leave to the populace in various states to vote on because they're so fundamental to our liberty and our civil rights. And so that was a loser argument. And then a couple of places, she was ready with amazing counterpunches for the places where he could have been stronger, like the Afghanistan pullout. I had forgotten that he hosted the Taliban at Camp David. Now I remember the picture of the guy in the black robe and the whole thing. And she said, the reason we had a bad pullout is because you cut a terrible deal with the Taliban that we had to clean up behind. And then he just started, stuttering, stammering, and couldn't come up with a coherent answer about something that could have been a decent argument for him about Afghanistan. On the economy, she was ready with everything. And she was so micro focused that when he talked about Pennsylvania, because they were in Pennsylvania, she said, well, tell that to the 800,000 when they were talking about Ukraine and how he would just, like, art of the deal, broker a deal. That's how he was going to settle it. He would turn Ukraine over to Putin. And she said, tell that to the 800,000 Polish American voters in Pennsylvania. I mean, the fact that she had that stat in her head and ready to go, remarkable. And said to him, you know why you talk on this debate stage about dictators with such admiration? Because he brought up Viktor Orban, the Hungarian dictator. He brought up Putin. She said it's because they know they'll eat your lunch because they'll just flatter you and you'll give away America's foreign policy and security. He didn't like the answer, but there was nothing he could do to it. He just gave one of those faces, and then she moved on. And I thought, in a way, as you said, Karen, that Hillary was never able, because she's not Hillary, in a way that Hillary was never able to do. She was able to artfully turn and be aggressive on him, but not be seen, as you said, in some negative way, because she's also a successful woman. So the whole gender thing for me disappeared on that stage.
Totally.
Right? You agree?
And she also didn't let him make it about race. He tried to bait her to turn it into a race thing, and she didn't. Because I think a lot of people just don't want to make this about race or gender. They just want this to be about who's the best person, who has the best policies. And he really tried to do that too. But I just want to point out something about what you just said. Him saying that he was going to broker this, the war is going to be over. If I'm elected, the war is going to be over in Russia and Ukraine before I'm even sworn in. That's a violation of the Logan Act, right? Which is a law, 18 USC section 953, which is, right? It's a federal law that criminalizes the negotiation of a dispute between the United States and a foreign government by an unauthorized American citizen. Like,
he's conducting foreign policy before he's president.
Yeah, and he says that, and the thing is, he doesn't care. He is like, he's not just an Icarus who flies too close to the sun. He flies into the sun and gets away with it, and unfortunately, the Supreme Court enables it and allows him to. But he just says this stuff like, he just literally does whatever he wants. He always has, and I just, it was just shocking to me listening to him, the things that came out of his mouth. But she was amazing. You were fired by 81 million people. I think, Salty, you have a clip to play, right, on that?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did in fact lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact.
Yeah, that there we could just do an entire hot, hit, the greatest hits of Kamala Harris. I want to talk when we come back from our ad break, Karen, about Taylor Swift. I know you have some very good, strong, right-on opinions about her. I want to talk about the impact of her endorsement, full-throated endorsement for Kamala Harris in the battleground states among the voters that matter, and getting them to vote, especially if it's millennials who don't vote in their large numbers that older people vote, but may now, because somebody that they respect have said where she's at in her politics. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about your old office and what's going on with the sentencing. Is this a good thing or bad thing for Donald Trump in America that his sentencing is now going to be after the election, but before the inauguration, and 2 days before Thanksgiving? And what about that immunity decision? And what's going on the federal side with Donald Trump? He had an argument today before the Second Circuit on certain of the issues. He's got other issues about trying to get the case brought into federal court at the last minute to try to get something to the Supreme Court, which I think Mershon has found a way to scuttle. And then we'll talk about what's happening in Georgia. But first, we've got this amazing group, really proud of the Midas team and Jordy in particular, in putting together our group of pro-democracy sponsors. They know what our show is. They know what our content is. They've seen the show. We've got like 1,400 episodes that are up, and they have chosen to sponsor our show and speak directly to our audience. And one of the ways you can support what we do here on the Midas Touch Network and on Legal AF is to support our sponsors. We've test driven all of these items. We do the ones that we want to promote. I mean, as a channel, and we like these products. We use these. I can't tell you how much of my day is spent actually using, or doing something with one of the product sponsors and supporting them if you can afford it. I'm not asking you to spend money that you don't have. We have many, many ways to free support, which is very invaluable to the network and to the show. But this is one way that if you think the product is interesting and we give you a code that you can use for a discount that we've negotiated, this is another good way to support the podcast. So let's hear from our first set of sponsors. Feels like everything has a subscription these days. Food, streaming, phones, even dog food. Rocket Money has helped me get a hold of what's coming out of my bank account in one place. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that empowers you to save more, spend less, and take control of your financial life. With Rocket Money, you can see all of your checking, savings, credit cards, and investments in one convenient place, allowing you to understand your spending trends. Rocket Money can calculate your monthly spending allowance and alert you when you're close to going over budget so you can save more and spend less. It helped me realize I needed to cut back on food delivery. Whether your goal is to pay off your credit card debt, set aside money for a house, or simply save your money, Rocket Money makes it easy. Rocket Money will even try to negotiate lower bills for you, sometimes by up to 20%. Saving money on a cell phone or cable bill and not having to deal with customer service yourself, that's a dream come true. Rocket Money has over 5 million happy members and has saved its users over $1 billion across all of the app's features. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Get Rocket Money today at rocketmoney.com/legalaf. That's rocketmoney.com/legalaf. Once again, rocketmoney.com/legalaf.
If you're like me and you're always looking for new products that genuinely improve your life, then listen to what I'm about to tell you. I'm about to tell you about one of my favorite products. It's called Lumi. It's a whole body deodorant that comes in a stick, a cream, a tube. There's a body wash, cleansing bar, wipes. And I love this product because you can use it anywhere. You could use it under your arms. You could use it in your feet. You can use it anywhere you need odor control control, and it provides long-lasting 72-hour odor control. It's OBGYN developed, so it doesn't cause irritation. It smells really good, and there's great selection of various scents. I personally like clean tangerine, but there's all sorts of other ones that you can go online and check them out and see what they have. It's phenomenal. I really love their body wash as well. So ready to make the upgrade to Lumi. We have a special offer for new customers. Get 15% off all Lumi products with our exclusive code and link. Use LegalAF at LumiDeodorant.com. That's LumiDeodorant.com and use Legal AF at checkout. So I love it. I love how it works. I love that you can use it anywhere, and I recommend it. Lumi, thank you so much for sponsoring this episode and giving people who listen to Legal AF and use our promo code 15% off.
Have you heard that the flavored air category is quickly becoming the leading alternative to vaping and smoking? It's a whole new movement towards better habits, led by the sponsor of today's video, Fume. Fume is an award-winning flavored air device, and flavored air isn't like vaping. If vapor was compared to sticky soda, Fume cores are closer to herbal teas. Fume has lots of delicious flavors to choose from, like crisp mint and orange vanilla. With flavored air, you can satisfy your oral fixation through a passive diffusion system that utilizes no electronics, vapor, or combustion. Instead, Fume draws flavor to your mouth. Fume fills the void ditching a bad habit can leave. There's no vapor, and you can use it anywhere. There's no nicotine, and it's not addictive. The non-toxic flavors are a guilt-free alternative. Fume doesn't use any batteries, so you'll never need to charge it. The design is super sleek, it looks awesome, and you can truly feel the weighted, high-quality design. I mean, one of the fun things about Fume is that it's made to fidget with and calms anxiety with magnets, snaps, and clicks. Fume continuously invests in third-party studies to ensure the safety of their products. My favorite Fume flavor is the orange vanilla. It's just as delicious as it sounds. And look, if you're trying to kick your bad habit, I couldn't recommend Fume enough. Fume has served over 300,000 customers, and you can be the next success story. For a limited time, use my code LEGALAF to get a free gift with your Journey Pack. Head to tryfume.com. That's TRYFUM.com and use code LEGALAF or scan the QR code on the screen to get a free gift with your order today.
And we are back, still talking about what's on everybody's mind, what everybody's talking about today. I mean, I was out to lunch today with some young professionals who work in my office, female, who were just ecstatic. I mean, there was a buzz in my office today about what happened last night in the debate. That last time I saw that and heard that and felt that was when Barack Obama was in the midst of his campaign, his ultimate successful campaign. And let's talk about the Taylor Swift impact. From your perspective, I know I'm the father of a daughter, but you have daughters, some of which I think are voting age. Mine is not. Mine will not know about this election. Hopefully we'll be telling her, bouncing her on my knee about President Kamala Harris. I think we're all working towards that.
All
Oprah
three of my
Winfrey
girls are voting age, Popak. All three.
So great. So you got Oprah. Oprah Winfrey, 3 million votes attributed to her to help Barack Obama. Taylor Swift, I think there's two angles to Taylor Swift's endorsement. Was it that she waited to watch the debate, or was she finally had to get off the sidelines because now space abhors, nature abhors a vacuum, and by not saying a darn thing about what her politics were, she allowed MAGA to use AI, artificial intelligence, to create memes of Swifties for Trump and her dressed as Uncle Sam talking about Donald Trump. And that wasn't, in fact, she spent a fair amount of time in her endorsement saying how scared she was of the implications of AI being used to put words in her mouth, and especially to her millions and millions and tens of millions of fans worldwide. So I don't really care what the reason is. I mean, I guess we could all speculate. Would she have come out and done it this close to the election? Was she always planning to do that? Did this goaded her into doing that? But it doesn't matter. She did it. And now with the 40 whatever days are left, or whatever the days, 60 days are left, what do you think, as a mother of children, voting age, females voting age, what do you think the impact is going to be in the battleground states among not only millennials, but people who are the parents of millennials and grandparents of millennials and are not millennials? What do you think the ultimate impact to her to move the needle in the battleground states? RFK is not moving the needle for Donald Trump. It was like, oh, it's good for 2%. It's not good for shit. And even his own people are abandoning Donald Trump and moving over to Kamala Harris, along with all the other Republicans. What do you think about Taylor Swift?
Look, I think it's exactly what was needed. And, it's not just what she did, but it's how she did it, right? She leaned into this childless cat lady, basically saying to, F you, JD Vance and Donald Trump. This wasn't just I support Kamala Harris. This was also a pointed statement to them, and very much showing her distaste with what they do and how they do it and what they say. And she doesn't want to stand by the sidelines anymore and not talk about what she believes in. And you can tell this was really heartfelt and really what she believes in. It's not, she doesn't need to endorse a candidate for her career. She doesn't need any of this. If anything, she's invited criticism. She could just go about her life and not do anything, but she couldn't. She's a really wonderful, caring woman who, when she goes on does these incredible tours, she always donates money, lots of money, to causes in the communities where she is performing. You could just tell she's someone who deeply, deeply cares about the issues that she cares about and about people. And if you are someone who deeply cares about people, about the truth, and about women, and about just anything other than yourself and your own grievances, you are going to vote for Kamala Harris. And it's partly why everybody loves her so much. The reason people are Swifties, it's partly because she has great music, right? Of course she has great music and she's a great singer, but it's really who she is. And that's why there are these Swifties like me who just think she's beyond amazing. And it's because of who she is, not just what she does. And so this was just yet another example, I think, the way she did it, of her authenticity coming out and showing support. And, it was also, I thought, frankly, the fact that Eileen Cannon dropped her love letter to Trump by dismissing the case on the day of the RNC, this was kind of a touche, this was perfectly timed and choreographed. And she is a performer too, not just Donald Trump, who tries to put on a wrestling match and a show and a freak show every time he goes out and does something. So this is performative as well. But bravo Taylor Swift in every aspect, in every way. It's just incredible. And, I'm absolutely loving what I'm seeing. And I'm loving, look, the Kamala Harris is breathing new energy. I mean, I love that people think she's young and new energy in a new generation, since I'm the same age as, but still, that I think there's an energy, and that young people are going to want to follow her and vote for her. And, women's issues, reproductive rights, all that kind of stuff. It's all on the table, our democracy, it's all at stake. And I do think that this will move the needle in a big way. I think this is like seismic.
I agree with you. And it got reinforced for me over my lunch when I was having some candid conversations with people in that sort of age range that would I asked them point blank. I said, what do you think? They said, huge. They said it will impact. People will follow Taylor Swift on politics. They will get up off the couch. They will register to vote. I said, well, millennials or people in that age range, let's say 18 to 25, 24, don't historically vote in as large numbers as others. And they said, we think they will now, and that there's still time. This is a good time. We're running out of time for voter registration. So people that want to vote have to, if they're not already registered, or they weren't already activated, need to be activated now. But there's enough time to do it. But now they got to, if they're not registered to vote, now they've got to do a two-step process. They got to kind of thread the needle in their state. And many of them that live in the battleground states or in the MAGA states now have these extra barriers and hurdles to entry, to registration, because the Republicans decided in the name of voter integrity. And when you hear voter integrity coming out of the mouth of MAGA and Republicans, you just translate it immediately. It's like Google Translate that into voter suppression. Whenever they say voter integrity, they really mean voter suppression. They want long lines at the polls so people get disappointed and fatigued and leave. They want to shorten the amount of early voting period. They want to shorten the amount of hours for polls. They want to eliminate precincts and pollings because they want to make it really, really hard on you to vote. They want to make it hard on absentee balloting and early voting and mail-in voting and every other way, drop box voting, everything else that you're allowed to do. So this young group, hopefully being also guided by older people, elders in their life, can have to navigate a process to get registered in a way that you and I did not have to in order to cast our first vote. I just filled out a card, dropped it in the mail in the post office, showed up at my firehouse, 4 blocks from my house, and I voted and signed my name and went into one of those giant silver metal boxes with like a fabric curtain, and you hit the lever and the curtain went behind you. People are tuning in like, how old is Popok? Yes, that's how you voted. And then, you hope that the tape at the bottom of the machine got taken out and counted at the precinct at the appropriate time. So it's not just voting, it's getting them to register and then getting them to the polls. We don't just need chat, we need action. And I'm convinced that the Taylor Swift effect, as it has with the economy, as it has with the NFL television ratings, as it has with Travis Kelce's podcast being sold for $150 million, is all a part of this ecosystem around that she's created around her worldwide, and especially in the United States. I mean, I don't think it was a coincidence that the NFL reported the best first week ratings in its history this past week. I think Swifties have discovered, if they hadn't before, football and have been brought to football by Taylor Swift, and they are adding to the numbers of viewership. She had such a big impact on the economy, the U.S. economy during her tour, that the Federal Reserve regions had a report in their actual quarterly reports about the increased revenue in a certain region of the Federal Reserve when she toured and the amount of dollars that were being pumped into the town. When you make the Federal Reserve report, you're doing something right. So whereas our generation would have been influenced by Oprah back in the day, and her, and she's still I love having the Oprah endorsement as well for Kamala, but this is a different time. And so that segment of the voting population needs to overvote. I don't mean vote more than once. I mean, they've got to overrepresent from what they usually do. And she can definitely bring it. And if it was 3 million attributed votes because of Oprah to Obama, I think you could easily say this could be a 5 million, 6 million, 10 million swing, right? Why not? So we're going to talk about, let's switch gears for a minute. Let's leave JD Vance for a minute. Every time I have to talk about him, I want to take a shower, except
Same. There's something just really gross, and creepy.
Please, yeah. Which one?
No, I was agreeing with you. I said there's something about him gross and creepy that just it's like the ew factor. And it reminds me, I was just thinking when you said, what impact will these things have? Similarly with Elon Musk, and the Federal Election Commission is starting to take notice of the fact that he owns a major Twitter, whatever it's called now, X, and he is trying to influence the election. And I think he's hoping to have that same impact that Taylor Swift and Oprah have. I don't think he will, but speaking of ew and creepy, his response to Taylor Swift's endorsement was something like, I'll give you a child and something, I'll save your cat. What? Pardon?
Yuck. No, I'm responding
Yeah,
to your,
yeah.
I'll give you a child. Okay.
Yeah, it was
Yuck.
so, I mean, maybe Salty can find it and put it up here,
Elon
but it was
Musk, just to
so
be
gross.
clear,
I
has
was like, ew, what is this like a rapey thing that you're doing? Like,
Elon Musk has 10 children by 5 different women and has paternity suits all over the place. And when he doesn't drag his smallest child, who he named X, as a human prop to investor meetings, I'm not making this up. The fact that he's lecturing us along with JD Vance on who has the right to be an American citizen, patriot, and voter in this country, do they think this is effective on getting and making new Trump voters?
And he refuses to acknowledge his trans daughter, by the way.
Which one? Musk?
Yeah, he's got
no surprise.
Yeah, no, he's got he has a I think all of his kids are boys or biologically born boys, and one of them has switched genders, is a girl now, or a woman. I'm not sure exactly how old she is. And Musk publicly either doesn't acknowledge her or will publicly criticize the fact, that she has done this. And I mean, who goes after their own child like that? Like, he's just awful.
MAGA Republicans.
Fine, Taylor, you win. I will give you a child and guard your cats with my life. I was like, ew, that's like rapey.
It is.
Gross.
It is rapey. And this is the reason that collectively Republicans in the know, although they wanted to be anonymous when they were interviewed, slapped their collective foreheads during the debate. Because I assure you, not one, I'll go out on a limb, not one new Trump voter got made during that debate last night. And a whole handful or more went over to the Kamala side that were on the fence. And I know that he lost the debate, not just because I have eyes and ears and I'm carbon-based and I can hear it, but I have Republican friends, unfortunately. I mean, not unfortunately. I mean, I like them as friends, but they're on the wrong side of the arc of history here. Not one of them texted me. Not when I woke up this morning, I thought, all right, there'll be a couple of not one text, not one. And him going into the spin room and him now saying he doesn't want to debate it. Of course, he doesn't want to debate a second time. She'll pull out his heart on national TV and show it to him in the next debate, live on television.
He's fundamentally weak. At the end of the day, he's one of these blustering showmen who tries to make up for substance with his kind of being loud and whatever, but at the end of the day, he's weak. He doesn't fight back, and he has no strength and fortitude. I mean, not at all.
Weak and small. We're watching the incredible shrinking presidential candidate. He's now down to about the size you can just, I was going to say drown him in the bathtub, but you could just put him in the bathtub. He's just this, I remember the scene, I know Beetlejuice is coming back out again for a sequel. And just that incredible shrinking head guy where, the head, this is just Donald Trump. He's now about 2 feet tall. And he's just yelling and screaming, and nobody gives a shit. And now let's use that. That's a clunky segue into the New York Manhattan DA prosecution and where we're at with that. And here's my question. I'll just lay it out there. Mershon had a decision to make. And the way he made it as the sentencing judge, this is now after arraignment, after conviction, before sentencing. Donald Trump was supposed to be sentenced in July. But right before he was about to be sentenced, the immunity decision came out. He's supposed to be sentenced in the middle of July. July 1, the immunity decision comes out of the U.S. Supreme Court. And Mershon, rightfully so, said, you know what? Let's take a break. Everybody brief the issue. Donald Trump asked for a briefing. He's going to file a motion. I need to apply, as a judge who lives in America, I need to apply what the Supreme Court says if it's applicable. Let me see your briefing. So he took time out. He could have sentenced them, but he didn't. All right. Now we fast forward to the delayed date, postponed a second time into September. And in the interim, Donald Trump runs off to federal court, tries to remove the case the last minute, post-conviction, pre-sentencing, to try to argue some federal defense. And he gets assigned, of course, to the same judge, Judge Hellerstein, federal court, that you and I talked about when we were on holiday and phoning in from our holidays on our midweek edition at that time. And And they lost then. And they tried to re-argue that he had the right as a federal officer. Donald Trump, employee badge number 1, gets to take all of his cases to federal court, which is not true. And not true based on the allegations in the indictment. And now the conviction in the indictment. In other words, 12 jurors in New York believe the indictment and the evidence that was presented beyond a reasonable doubt. He's convicted. So it's a whole different world. So he, however, looks to the Manhattan DA and says, what say you, Manhattan DA? Should I delay further? Or should I, as the criminal procedure law in New York says, should I, I have to administer justice. I have to sentence relatively quickly. What do you say? And you and I talked a couple weeks ago about the smart position that they took to say, we're going to be agnostic on this, Judge. You know how a calendar works. You know your job. You do what you do. You do you. We're not going to take a position. When Merchan wrote his decision, in which he said, I'm going to delay the sentencing till November 26th. And I'm not even going to rule on the immunity decision until much later after the election as well, tying the two things together and saying, the clock, he interpreted it as the clock doesn't start on my having to sentence until I rule on the motion to dismiss on immunity. So I'm going to postpone both, kick them both over. And then but he did spill a number of pages of ink talking about the Manhattan DA not taking a position. Do you think that was a mistake for the Manhattan DA not to take a position? And if they had taken a position for him to sentence on time and stay the course, do you think Judge Merchan would have made a different decision?
I mean, look, I think they miscalculated. They tried to be too cute by half. And this is my old office. I love them, but I got to call it like I see it. They tried to not take a position and say, we don't take a position. I said several times on Legal AF and on Hot Takes and everywhere else that they were taking a position by not taking a position, which is they were essentially agreeing that it's okay to adjourn the case. And look, everyone who practices law in that building knows that that's exactly what they were doing. And so it was just totally clear, right, that they were essentially saying, look, we agree this should be adjourned because they just didn't think there was enough time to brief it. And they felt that they needed to say that. And so the judge saw that too. And the judge was like, look, I'm not going to let you put this on me. Everyone's going to get criticized. And, everyone's going to say, oh, this is political, or why are you doing this? Why are you not doing it? You're not going to put this on me as if this is all on me. You agreed too. You left me with no choice, essentially. So, he kind of called them out on it and really sort of showed them what they were doing, because that's what they were doing. It was just so obvious, but it's fine. That's what they felt. I think they should have just leaned into it. They thought it should be adjourned. And so just say that. You don't not take a position. They thought it should be adjourned, not for political reasons, but because of this, this dumpster fire of a decision on presidential immunity that the Supreme Court handed down in July. I mean, it was just ridiculous. Does it apply to the case? Is he immune from the conduct? Absolutely not. Are there going to be a few pieces of evidence that are impacted by this? Perhaps. Will that have been harmless error to analyze it? That's what the judge is going to have to decide. And it's a big decision. On top of that, the thing that the Supreme Court left ambiguous is this something that they can appeal before he's, when the judge makes the ruling on presidential immunity, can they appeal that, do an interlocutory appeal, which means appeal it before the sentencing, right, during the pendency of the case, as opposed to appealing after the sentence. And that's an open question. And the reason it's an open question is the Supreme Court explicitly said you do have a right to an interlocutory appeal if it was on the issue of presidential immunity on the conduct, right? But this was not on the conduct. This was on the evidence. I know it's a slight point, but they left the question open and ambiguous on whether the admission of evidence that is that tends to be about presidential immunity to prove unimmune conduct, right? Which this is, whether that is appealable. And I think the Manhattan DA's office saw that that's unclear, and perhaps he can do it, and that this realistically isn't enough time to go and all the way up to the Supreme Court, or at least the appellate courts, to determine this. And so the Manhattan DA thought that. And I think Judge Merchan also sees that is a possibility. And so he also, and the reason I think he basically called them out and said, you're not going to put this on me and I'm going to adjourn this until after the election, is now any decision that is done is going to look political. and it's going to look like it's totally my call. And so, that's why he's just like, look, I'm taking politics out of it, and we'll just put it over until after the election and just let the chips fall where they may. It doesn't bother me as much as it bothers some that they did this, because it wasn't like he could put him in anyway or put him in jail anyway. He's running for president. He's just not going to do that now. And so let's wait and see if he wins, because if he doesn't win, he's going in. I think he goes in, and
I like that. I like that. I like that bumper sticker. We're going to give it to Jordy. KFA. If he doesn't win, he's going in. That's perfect. I love it.
But it's true. It's true. And, it's not, because if he does win, there's some little pesky supremacy clause of the United States Constitution. He's not, a little state court judge is not going to be able to do that. So, it's just the reality of things. And Judge Merchan is a practical guy. He sees the reality of it. And so he put it over. But this leads us to the segue of the stay that Donald Trump is seeking in the Second Circuit. What was interesting was their lawyers, Todd Blanche and Emile Beauvais, they were asking for the case to be adjourned until after the election. And they said because they don't want it to influence the election, right? That was their stated reason, is adjourn the sentence after the election because we don't want it to influence the election. Well, they got what they asked for. But what are they doing now? Now they're going back to the Second Circuit, which is now federal court, right? They're leaving state court. They're going to federal court. And they're saying, I want this case, they're still fighting removal, right? They still want this case to go to federal court. And they still, even though they've lost that now twice through Judge Hellerstein, which is a district court judge in New York, who said this is purely private conduct. This is not anything presidential. And so I'm not removing this case. Well, they want to brief the issue, and they're seeking a stay in the Second Circuit, and they're giving now a different excuse. For the first time they sought the stay, the first time they went to the Second Circuit and sought the stay, what they asked for was when they went to federal court and asked for the stay, what they asked for was a stay so that they wouldn't get sentenced before the election, because it could influence the election. Well, they got what they asked for. Now they have changed their tune. They have literally changed their reasoning and said, okay, well, how we said we didn't want the sentencing to happen because we didn't want it to influence the election? Well, we didn't really mean that. What we really meant was, now we want it to go, we want it to be adjourned until forever, never, and I never want to be sentenced, so that we can take this and meander it through the appellate, because so many appellate issues, about whether this should be removed, whether the immunity decision, this and that. They just want to, literally jerk around in the appellate courts on this made up law of presidential immunity. And so I hope somebody calls them out on it, that literally their reasoning changes, and they do that, right? They just, it's almost like it's misleading the court, is what I will say.
Yeah, I saw that. I know you've got a hot take that's coming up on that very issue. This is just an effort by Donald Trump to inject more delay. There's one of the reportings I read recently that, well, Donald Trump pulled off the inside straight that he was looking for. He got all 4 of his cases either delayed, and even when he got convicted, he didn't get sentenced. And the other case got dismissed. In Georgia, Fani Willis, shot herself in the foot, whatever. We'll talk about Fani Willis next. I don't really see it that way. I think the American people, as I said at the top of the podcast, American people have all the information they need to know about Donald Trump. That's why 90% of the people said, yeah, we're good. We know all we need to know about Donald Trump. It's Kamala we want to learn more about. That's why I don't think that the Republicans and MAGA and Trump should take a lot of solace. And that's why I think there's been a misinterpretation of the polling so far. First of all, the debate performance is not part of the polling. It hasn't seeped into the water supply yet. We'll see that in a week or two. But the reason, like, oh, she had this big, post-convention bump, and now it's moved back to where it used to be and all of that. That's not what we're watching. What we're watching is that even with 30% of the electorate or likely voters not knowing enough about Kamala Harris to make their decision, she's effectively tied or in the lead in the 7 battleground states. Her ceiling, when we talk about a performing artist, a soprano in the opera, or an athlete, their ceiling on their talent hers is off the screen, as you can see by my hand. Donald Trump, everybody knows what they need to know about Donald Trump, right? And so he's not going to get any better. And Kamala Harris is now going to continue to build on a masterful debate performance where she was eloquent and she was poised and she was commanding and all of, as in stark contrast to the unwell, unkempt guy next to her. And the split screen did not help Donald Trump. In the beginning, I was like, wow, he's not moving any of his facial muscles. Maybe he got Botox on top of everything else that he's doing. Then he couldn't, of course, the mask slips. He can't keep it going for that long. And then, of course, that he has, I don't want to do his facial expressions. I'm afraid I'll get stuck with them, but it'll be like, he's got that thing where it looks like he has to immediately go do number 2 in the toilet. This weird face, which he thinks is some sort of retort to her. And they taught him, and this is what lesson he did learn from his prep, not to go after her the way he went after Hillary Clinton, where he walked. Remember that round revolving stage where he just started talk about stalking, stalked her like a predator and walked behind her and near her and got in her grill and all that. Well, now they were locked into 2 podiums. He couldn't do that. And whereas, as we showed earlier, Kamala Harris used her facial muscles and her expressions and her, you're not well, man, really? Or tell me more, keep going. We're eating this up, keep hanging yourself, to great effect. He, on the other hand, just had a series of dyspeptic, I've got colitis or an ulcer kind of look, which that didn't telegraph anything other than you're getting your ass kicked. And that's what that looks like. So that's the, but I love the tableau of talking about, the delay issue and how Kamala was able to use that right in the debate. The whole, well, wait a minute. You don't get to talk about crime rates. You're a one-man walking, I think you said it once in our hot take, one-man walking crime spree. You don't get to talk about that. So this is where that intersection, that crossroads of law and politics really comes into our show like this. Let's we kind of talked out Mershon, Trump, the delay, the attempt to delay, the attempt to get over to federal court, which has now been scuttled by Mershon. He did not give Donald Trump what he wanted. The American people know what they need to know about the convictions, 91 felonies, 34 convictions, E. Jean Carroll, sex assault, punitive damages, civil fraud, New York, and the indictments by 5 grand juries. And they know what they need to know. Okay. And judges declaring that he committed crimes in 2 different places, DC and California. That's baked in. Right. And so she goes up from there and he sort of either just flatlines at his 47% as she goes to her 51, 52, 53%. And then, of course, it comes down to the battleground states and place by place. We haven't talked about Georgia in a while, and we're going to do that and bring us up to date with Fani Willis. She's not going anywhere. She's got an appeal that's going to be heard in the fall. She's got a state house Senate, Georgia Senate, up her backside, trying to get her a la like little Comer Light, trying to get her before their committee to talk about an ongoing investigation and trial. And we already have judges, including Judge McAfee, recusing himself from, she's had to file a lawsuit, an action to try to quash the subpoenas, meaning make sure they don't get enforced against her, to appear before those Senate committees. And that's going to have to be litigated by somebody, not Scott McAfee. He was like, no, I'm too close to this case. I'm dealing with her as the prosecutor. I'm not going to handle the quashing of the subpoena issue. That should go to somebody else. We'll pick up with all that and from Karen Freeman at Kniffel's prosecutorial lens. But first, another word from our sponsors. Have you heard about this new bioactive whole food that seems almost too good to be true? It's got thousands upon thousands of 5-star reviews and literally life-changing testimonials from users. Just having witnessed firsthand the birth of my baby daughter this summer, I know that colostrum is the first nutrition we receive in life and contains all of the essential nutrients our bodies need in order to thrive. Armra colostrum is a proprietary concentrate of bovine colostrum that harnesses over 400 living bioactive nutrients that strengthen the barriers of your body and fuel cellular health for thousands of research-backed
health benefits. It strengthens immunity, ignites metabolism, fortifies gut health, activates hair growth and skin radiance, powers fitness performance and recovery, and confers powerful anti-aging benefits. Armra colostrum is premium bovine colostrum concentrate, and unlike any other product on the market, it is uniquely optimized for human health, sustainable, and was developed with the highest integrity from start to finish. Armra starts with sustainably sourced colostrum from grass-fed cows from their own co-op of dairy farms in the USA, and they strictly abide by calf-first sourcing, only sourcing the surplus supply of colostrum after calves receive all the nutrients they need. Unlike most colostrums, which use heat pasteurization that depletes nutrient potency, Armra leverages their proprietary cold chain biopotent pasteurization technology, an innovative process that preserves the integrity and bioavailability of hundreds of bioactive nutrients. And Armra Colostrum's unwavering commitment to quality control is evident throughout our entire process. They go above and above industry standards and invest in an expensive auditing and third-party testing and analysis pipeline to ensure Armra Colostrum meets the highest bar of purity and efficacy, which includes being certified glyphosate-free. Armra Colostrum fortifies gut health and ignites metabolism, combats bloating, and you'll feel lighter using it. Probiotics are touted as a gut health solution, but they only address one part of the four-part gut wall, and most products on the market are dead before they even reach your gut. Armra Colostrum naturally fortifies your entire gut wall system, optimizing your microbiome and strengthening the gut wall architecture, which guards against irritants that can trigger symptoms like bloating and constipation. We've worked out a special offer for my audience. Receive 15% off your first order. Go to tryarmra.com/legalaf or enter legalaf to get 15% off your first order. That's tryarmra.com/legalaf. The law firm, my Legal AF podcasting and hot take work, and a new baby to raise with my wife, I've hit the apex of my stress level, leading me to feel drained at times and run down. But I would never use any type of stimulant that would interfere with my heart-healthy routine. Super Beets Heart Chews offer a convenient, delicious plant-based way to support healthy blood pressure and circulation. Enjoy a heart-healthy boost without the jitters. Paired with a healthy lifestyle, the unique antioxidant compound in Super Beets is clinically shown to be nearly 2 times more effective at promoting normal blood pressure than a healthy lifestyle alone. I love Super Beets Heart Chews because it has boosted my energy level and made me feel like I am focused on a heart-healthy lifestyle, so I don't let those important to me, including my audience, down. And it's so simple. I just put the individually wrapped heart chews in my little sandwich bag along with my other vitamins and take them as soon as I step into my daily commute. It's the only heart chew I've ever used, and that says it all. Support healthy circulation from a plant-based chew without stimulants and no artificial sweeteners or colors. In fact, more doctors, pharmacists, and cardiologists recommend Super Beets for heart health support than any other beet brand. Double your potential with Super Beets Heart Chews. Get a free 30-day supply of Super Beets Heart Chews on all bundles and 15% off your first order by going to getsuperbeets.com and using code LEGALAF. That's getsuperbeets.com. Code LEGALAF. Well, we're back. So, Karen, let's move on to Georgia. How do you feel about that? All right. Just turn on your mic. We're ready to go.
There you go. Okay.
All right. Okay. All right. You want to lead on Georgia?
Yeah, I mean, look, they're just
All right.
harassing Fonnie Willis again. You know, this case is in sort of this nowheresville of appellate land where, you know, it's Judge McAfee, just to remind everyone where we are. Judge McAfee ruled that if Nathan Wade stepped down, she could continue on as the prosecutor, but also gave them an opening, Trump and his co-defendants, an opening to appeal, and which I guess you had to give permission from the judge for them to appeal, and he gave them that permission. And so now we're in appellate land, and it's sort of waiting. I think oral arguments, I don't even think there's a date, but it's December 2024. At some point, they're having oral arguments. And so that case is dead in the water while they try and figure this out. And so in the meantime, the Georgia State Senate is literally just harassing her and asking for every single, phone call or text message or email between her and Nathan Wade for the last 5 years, and subpoenaing it first of all, they formed this special commission, right, to investigate the conflict of interest of Fani Willis and the Georgia State Senate. And, it's like the who's who of the MAGA right-wing false slate of electors scheme people of Georgia. And that's who's on this commission. And so, they're subpoenaing all these records. They're subpoenaing things that are overbroad, that would just use so many resources of the DA's office to try to get this information, and that are irrelevant and frankly could impact the case. So they're subpoenaing documents, and then they subpoenaed her to come to testify before this commission on Friday, and she filed a motion to try to enjoin them from doing this, saying, look, A, there's an open investigation. It would be totally inappropriate. And B, it violates separation of powers. This is the legislative branch trying to interfere with the executive branch of the state of Georgia prosecuting a case. And it's just utterly inappropriate. So she's filing, she's trying to stop it through the courts. But unfortunately, these judges keep recusing themselves, whoever she gets in front of. One of them was Judge McAfee, because obviously he's the judge on the case. And then there's a couple other judges who are saying we have to be recused. We have a conflict of interest of some sort. I mean, who knows? Maybe they worked with Nathan Wade. Maybe they worked with Fani Willis. Maybe, who knows? It's a tight-knit community down there, apparently. And so they have to find a judge. It's unclear what will happen, whether she has to appear there on Friday. But it's just, I just, as a former prosecutor, the idea of the state legislature trying to haul a prosecutor in to talk about a case, right, is just utterly bananas and unfathomable. So I have a feeling there will be court intervention to say that she shouldn't have to go, but that's what's happening there. It's just the case is on pause and potentially dead for now. And in the meantime, they're just harassing her. They're literally just harassing her. And it just, it's outrageous. It's unfair. And she's a public servant who is literally trying to protect and serve the public, and she's being harassed. And I think it's outrageous. And hopefully every single one of them will be voted out of office in November. That's what's going on in Georgia.
Yeah, and she won her primary by a large number. The Fulton County voter has rallied around Fani Willis. She's going to be the Fulton County DA for a long, long time. I don't mean that as a threat. That's just an observation. And they're just taking a page out of MAGA, where they try to drag Alvin Bragg of your old office down to Washington during the course of the Trump investigation and a prosecution related to Stormy Daniels that ultimately led to his conviction. And there was a negotiated response related to that. That's the blueprint. The blueprint is chaos. They're just agents of chaos. Pressure testing and trying to throw over the guardrails that undergird our democracy, our criminal justice system, our civil justice system, which has been held up around the world as a shining example of how a proper constitutional republic and democracy is supposed to work like no other. And yet in the hands of MAGA, who have weaponized, using the term weaponized lawfare, have weaponized their attacks on the justice system, making people insecure and feeling and undermining people's the integrity of our justice system in a way that I never thought I would see. I never thought I would ever see a former president or current president attack all of the intelligence community, attack the FBI. Here's an example. I'll go back to the debate for a minute as we continue to sit at that crossroads of law and politics. At one point, Donald Trump, in talking about J6, he's such on a first name basis with his own insurrection, he's now down to an acronym. J6, as if the rest of the people know what he's talking about. He defended Ashley Babbitt, and he attacked a member of law enforcement who is a hero for having saved elected officials and their staff who were sitting down the hallway of the speaker's hallway when Ashley Babbitt, a former member of the military, wearing fatigues and a knapsack on her front, and Lord knows what was in her bag, crashed the glass to break through a window to get down to a speaker hallway. The only thing that stopped her from getting in to the inner sanctum of the halls of Congress while there were still elected officials in there, while these people were yelling bloody murder and for literally the heads of Nancy Pelosi and anybody they could get their hands on, meaning we would have had assassinated election staffers and elected officials if this law enforcement hadn't used as one bullet to stop Ashley Babbitt. But for Donald Trump, who continues to blow the dog whistle to the Proud Boys, to the Oath Keepers, to the MAGA, to the white supremacists, to the Nazis, to the rightist of right-wing racists that he needs to activate to get them to come to the polls to vote, because you can see he's not making any new voters. To him, Ashley, he got angry. That was the angry Donald Trump face. He was like spitting. It was almost like spittle was coming out of his mouth about Ashley Babbitt was killed, murdered by that cop who should. Look how he attacks law enforcement. At the same time, you go on his X account, his Twitter feed, and he's got the endorsement of the Fraternal Order of the Police. Have they seen what he has said about law enforcement, about our armed services, about our fallen veterans, our fallen servicemen and women? Have they seen that? Hundreds of other police chiefs have. So to hear Donald Trump defend Ashley Babbitt at the moment when he needed the white supremacist vote and the racist vote and the out of control insurrectionist vote, the J6, like the J6 choir. I mean, it's just disgusting. And it was on display once again. And they have the blueprint of chaos. And we're watching it with Fani Willis. And I assure you that if Fani Willis was white and her boyfriend or somebody that she dated who was underneath her in terms of subordinate, who was on the prosecution team, was also white, we would not be hearing anything about this. It would be, as Karen, you said once, an HR issue about whether that relationship should be disclosed or not. They both are adults. They were not married. One was separated. The other one was divorced. And they can do whatever they want in their off hours. And what does it have to do with the prosecution or her discretion as a prosecutor? And if she was white, I'm sorry, I don't mean to use the race card, you and I would not be talking about this, and that prosecution wouldn't be on life support. But because she did whatever red-blooded American would do who's single, wanted to date somebody that she found interesting, Donald Trump and his minions were able to use that, and that's why we don't have I don't think based on how long trials in state court take in Georgia, based on my understanding, we would never have had that trial completed before the election. But we don't even have, it's not even in the offing. There's no trial date. This could be more likely a 2026 event. Now, I like the way you said it earlier, Karen, top of the hot podcast, where you said, if he loses, which is looking ever so likely on a daily basis, he's going in, right? And he's going in for all these things. That's why he's right. Kamala Harris said something very, very telling and very interesting. She said, whenever you at a rally, Donald Trump, speak, you never speak about how you're going to help the American people. It's always about you, rally sizes, crowd sizes, all this other stuff. There's a reason for that. He has no interest in running to help the American people. His only interest is to run as fast as he can and try to outrun his criminal convictions and his criminal investigations and prosecutions. That's the only reason he's running. If there were not any criminal cases against him, in other words, he didn't commit any crimes, he would not be running, I assure you, for the presidency of the United States at the ripe old age of 80 years old to try to get back to the White House. It's because he's trying to outrun the criminal cases. so he can stand with his lawyers and say, I'm the leading candidate. No, you're not. I'm the leading candidate for president. That this is war. Whoa, this is lawfare. This is weaponization. This is election interference. If he wasn't running, he wouldn't be able to use all of those defenses and wouldn't get any MAGA judges to agree with him. And so that's what we've only, speaking of performative art, performative work, we've only been watching a performative. He's acting like he's running for president because that gives him a defense in the public and in court so far. I assure you, he'd be on a rocking chair in Florida, so to speak, if he grifting his way, to whatever next thing he would be doing. If he wasn't looking down the barrel of all these criminal cases, and just look how he's running his campaign. Where is he? You leave a debate like that, like Joe Biden, you got to go back out like the next day and get in front of the American people and do a rally and a press conference. And where is he? He's nowhere. He's phoning in. He's quietly quitting his own campaign. She, on the other hand, not only does she have a day job of being vice president, Kamala Harris, but she's out every day, it appears, on a whistle-stop tour of America and the battleground states, spending days on end in places like Georgia and in North Carolina to try to get votes. She's doing retail politics and campaigning, the likes we haven't seen since Obama and Clinton. Even Hillary didn't do that. Hillary did a lot of flyover campaigning, like, there's Pennsylvania. She didn't get out of the bus and actually do what Kamala's doing, and that's what Donald Trump is doing. Donald Trump is not campaigning in a traditional sense or in any sense. Phoning into Newsmax or doing podcasts that nobody's ever heard of or calling into Fox News or radio shows is not going to win you the election, not when you're Donald Trump. And that's all we've been watching. So look, we are always here. And it's not a joke. I tell people at my hot takes, find out what 40 million people a month already know. That Legal AF on the Midas Touch Network is the home of analysis and commentary at the intersection of law and politics. And here's a great example. I love doing midweek with my partner. There's lots of things going on in our lives. Lots. Good and bad and better. And a day like 9/11. But we are committed to preparing and being here as professionals, and because we love what we do and we love our audience. And that's where we're at. Let's bring Karen back. How you doing?
Good.
All right.
We've reached the end. Yeah. We've reached the end of just another amazing time together. And, we always seem to be together on these really special days and, things that are happening. And I just love the audience that, there's no one, I always think this, there's no one I'd rather be here with, than our community that we've created here with Legal AF, and especially on a somber day like today.
I'm so honored to be your partner in this and your colleague, and to have dinner with you in the mistrial.
Yeah, we got to go. Yeah, exactly.
We got to go.
We got to go.
We got to go. But listen, to our audience, there are no words that can describe how much you mean to us and to the Midas Touch Network. You helped propel, I forgot to mention, you helped propel the Midas Touch Network to 3 million subscribers. There's no other way to put it. We're one of the leading podcasts. We have a built-in audience, some of which listens to Midas Touch Brothers and other content. We encourage you to do that. Some of which only lives on Legal AF and vice versa. There's people that only know about the brothers and 5 or 6 other of our podcasts, and don't know anything about Legal AF, and suddenly they'll learn about it. But we could not have gotten to the 3 million mark without the contribution and the commitment of the Legal AF audience. In fact, a little known fact, we hit 3 million during Legal AF midweek with Karen Freeman-McNiffalo and Michael Popak. They were running like a counter of new subs simultaneously with our show. I was like, how come we're a little bit light tonight on viewership? Then I look over at the live channel, I'm like, oh wait, they're doing a balloon drop on the 3 million during our show. And I think we were also very close to 2 million. I think we missed it by a show or two, but Wednesday, definitely midweek. And that, we can't express how much that means to us. And by getting to that and the ways to support this network, Legal AF, are generally free. It's just your time commitment to us and vice versa that makes this happen. We're building this network with our bare hands, with your help, organically, word of mouth, no marketing department. It's not like you drive down the street and see a billboard with Midas Touch or Legal AF. I got t-shirts, got the store. I'll put the store up for a minute. Got the store. You can fly the flag of Legal AF there. We certainly have that. You get coffee mugs and t-shirts from that. And you can support the other podcasts that are related to us, right? Like Mistrial, where I'm going to have dinner with Karen, Danya, and Kathleen in a couple hours, and the hot takes that Karen, me, and Ben do in the legal and political sphere up here on the Midas Touch Network on a regular basis. You can go over to the playlists if you're like, I want to hear more from Karen and less from Popak, or more from Ben and less from Popak, or more from Popak and less from the other two. You can go over to playlists, look us up by our name, and you'll find all of our body of work sitting right there. That's another way to support us. And then we've got the sort of our guerrilla marketing plan, which is I do bumpers. I do introductions of Legal AF After Dark, which is effectively segments from today's show and all the other shows. And then we post those. Those are for people who really just want a bite-sized version of our show, don't know about our show. If you know about our show, you see that clip, and you're like, oh, I already watched that podcast. That's okay. Take that clip, send it off to people in your life and say, hey, that show I like, Legal AF? Here's an example. It's 10-minute commitment. And that'll be like a gateway drug to get them to come over to Legal AF. That's why we do Legal AF After Dark. And then support our sponsors. Watch the ads all the way to the end. Watch the show all the way to the end. But because that's important to the algorithmic gods and signals to them that we should be where we're at, which is top 50 in the world in news, top 10 in news analysis, and often top 200 in all genres of anything in podcast world in podcasts. And there's a reason for that. Watch the show to the end. Send signal to the algorithmic gods you like what we're doing here. And then if you can and you can afford it and it's something you think is interesting and you're listening to our endorsement of it, buy the product. We're getting you a discount, and that gets kind of calculated into sponsors wanting to be on our show. I made a joke on one of my hot takes. Some people, and I get it, oh, well, I bought YouTube ad free and why am I getting, you have to understand our business model here. We have no outside investors. Nobody dictates our content. Nobody tells us what to do, and there's no censorship. I don't even know what I'm about to say coming out of my mouth, let alone anybody, right? And neither does Karen. And there's no delay. Like Salty doesn't have a 5-second delay button. I don't think so. Salty? Where he's like, what's Popak going to say now? Hold it.
No delay. Yeah.
Right. No delay. So we have ads. It helps that. Things like patreon.com/legalaf for people that want to learn more about the law side of law and politics. A little plug for Legal AF Patreon. So we have these are what you do. If you don't want to watch ads, then you can go over to Truth Social, where they have no subscribers, they have nobody watches the channel, they have no real content, and they have no advertisers. So I joked in one of my hot takes, if you don't like our ads, it's okay. There are places on the dial where there are absolutely no ads. There's no content. There's nobody watching it. You go to Truth Social. There's zero ads. Ads are a good thing, is what I'm trying to say, because it shows that, and we curate the sponsors. It shows that there is a market to support our show with commercials, without having to bring in outside investors to keep us going. And because we have Midas Touch website. We've got round-the-clock journalists, investigative reporters working under Ron Filipkowski. We've got podcasts. We got people that help us put on the podcast. Salty is a real person. It's not a person that we made up, whenever we refer to the non-existent producer or editor, let's call him Salty. That's a real person. He's got bills to pay. And we have other editors, some of which we acknowledge. We got a guy named Jeremy. We got a nice person named Sydney. We've got, other people. We got lots of people here. Brett occasionally helps us with editing. We got to put money in their pocket. We got to help the economy. We've done it long enough on our own with just our laptops and our microphones. So that's the reason. It's a long-winded way of saying support us these ways. And then that will help continue to build the network. We have so many eyeballs on the network right now, extraordinary numbers, 30 million in 3 days, whatever the number is, #1 YouTube live channel in the world consistently. And when you add up all of our content, like nobody. And we have only you to thank. We're doing the content side. We're doing the production side. We're bringing it to you in a way that we think resonates with our audience. We got to have an audience. And you're doing more than your part. And the only thing we ever ask at the end of every show is that you take that energy and you take that commitment and you take that desire, that patriotic desire to help America, and you put it into voter registration, early voting, standing in line for as long as you can. And if you're in a blue state where your vote doesn't matter as much, mail in your vote and go help with a phone bank or voter registration in another state. You don't have to be a resident of another state in order to help in those ways. Contact the Democratic Party in your area, in your state, in your county. Ask them how you can help in battleground states. They will connect you with coordinators to have you knock on doors. You want to, you got some time on your hands. You want to take a road trip, go drive to a neighboring state that could use your help. We got a lot of registration that has to go on right now. That is a way. Phone banking is a way. Getting other people in your life to get to the polls, not just your vote. Bring 5, 6, 8, 10 people with you. That's how I believe I helped get Barack Obama elected. Whether that's true or not, I brought at least 8 to 10 people in my life to the polls for Barack Obama. No doubt. And I'm going to do the exact same thing for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And that's the only kind of ask that we really make of you, besides your commitment, is to help change the result. The Supreme Court is in your hands. Reproductive rights for women in your hands. And what our presidency looks like and who's going to occupy the Oval Office, and whether we're going to finally break that glass ceiling that Hillary Clinton so eloquently said during her speech. I cracked it. We can see Madam President Kamala Harris above that ceiling. Let's get there. And that's what this is all. This is why we do it. This is why we're so passionate about what we do. Karen, how about the last word?
Yeah, look, I think it's, I love your ending. I could never top that. Everything you just said is amazing. And can't wait to see you tonight. Yeah,
you too. So for Legal AF, Karen Friedman, Dipfilo, Mistrial, and Legal AF, Michael Popak, Legal AF, and all the hot takes of the Midas Touch Network. Signing off, shout out to the Midas Mighty and the Legal AFers.